Let's have a song of the ends. There we go then. Come on, let's get some of the lads together. Let's have a good idea. Okay, you're on. Go on, fellas. Get around a piano. Let's have a good go. Come on, then. Are you ready? Come on, you lot. Go on, then.
Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The imps are here to stay. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The imps are here to stay. Lincoln City are the team, the Reds is their name. Stinsel Bank is their home ground and football is their game. So come and cheer them on, you mad, support them all the way. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The imps are here to stay. Oh, 'tis our...
Helps if I add myself into the stream, doesn't it? Moron. How we doing? Been a while since I've done a dog walk. Again, combination of lazy dog, who isn't really up for this one, and just absolute filth and mud and nasty weather. But we've got 10 minutes, maybe 8, looking at the dog. So I just wanted to chat really about tonight's game a little bit. Accrington Stanley, Bristol Street Motors Trophy, aka Papa John's Trophy, aka Leasing.com Trophy, aka Checker Trade Trophy, Freight Rover Trophy, Auto Glass Windscreen Shield, and innumerable other sponsorship deals on what really is known by most people as the Mickey Mouse Trophy. And Disney are absolutely missing a trick, because they should sponsor this competition, actually call it the Mickey Mouse Trophy. Be phenomenal. I don't know if they need to advertise in lower league English football, but you know, if they do, there's a market for it. So it's Accrington Stanley. It's the replayed game. We're kicking off at 7 o'clock this time rather than 7:45, so it's a nice early one. The write-up can get done early. I love these early kickoffs in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy. Should we just call it the EFL Trophy, BSM Trophy, something like that? But I love the early kickoffs. I think they're a great idea. I've seen some people complaining, saying, "Oh, I can't really get to them when they're 7 o'clock." Nobody wants to go to them anyway, not really. So I think for 7 o'clock, if you're going away to Accrington, you're not going to finish at 5 and drive over there. You're going to have to take the afternoon off work anyway. So whether it's 7 or 7:45, it doesn't make a lot of difference. Granted, when it's at home, and were we to get through, we'd be at home in the next leg or the next round. Yeah, maybe 7:45 does make a difference. When you get in a crowd of 1,500, 2,000, which, you know, was norm once upon a time, it's not a big difference really, is it? I think, you know, there might be 40 or 50 people who go, I can't make it. And then there'll be another 40 or 50 people who go, oh, I can take little Theodore or little Simon or little Julia or whatever, their kids to the game, because it's not such a late finish. Swings and roundabouts. You know, the EFL Trophy is used often to blood youngsters and fringe players. Why not make it the first game for some young players, young kids? Why not make it a more family-friendly experience? I'm all for it. I am. I don't think I've always rated this competition, by the way, a little higher than I have things like the EFL Cup, probably mistakenly. There's good prize money available in this competition, and there are a lot of benefits that I see. Okay, the under-21 teams being in it are a nuisance, but there's 2 left in it. We're at the round of 16, I believe. So we're at what would used to be the old area quarterfinals. And there's 2 under-21 teams left in it. So they've been in it. We've taken their money. They've packed up and gone home. Boys can't play men. And I think it actually highlights the chasm between academy football and senior football. When you see some of these under-21 teams, I mean, you know, we've played the likes of Newcastle, Wolves, Everton in the previous seasons, and they've played some lovely football. Man United, I think we've played Man City, all under-21s. But it's that robustness. And I think it was demonstrated most obviously in the 2018 semi-final when we played Chelsea. You look at that Chelsea team and how many of those players have gone on to play senior football, particularly 1 or 2 at, you know, Premier League and international level. Really good footballers. And if you're a good footballer at 23, 24, you were a good footballer at 16, 17. It doesn't develop. But they came up against Luke Waterfall, Michael Bostwick, players who just had that experience, had that physicality. I don't care what you say, if you're 17, 18 years old, you are not up to the same physicality of fighting 28, 29-year-olds. And you can look like it on a game, you know, on an individual game basis. Jovan against Barnsley, for instance. But then you'll have an instance where he comes up against a Charlie Hughes, and kind of gets knocked about a bit. So that's kind of my thoughts on the under-21s. I don't see it anymore as a backdoor for them sliding into our league structure. I don't see that ever happening. And I think over 6, 7, 8 years that they've been in it now, they haven't done enough in the competition to suggest that there would be a place for them in our football structure. Just couldn't happen. Wouldn't happen. No, I see the BSM Trophy more like the old reserve league. And for people, Joe's here. He's watching. I hope you're well, Joe. He's a younger man. Sean will know what I'm talking about. Morning, Sean. But for people of a certain age, there was reserve team football. Now, it was so important at one point that there was programs produced for reserve team matches around the 40s and the 50s. You can get reserve team programs, and even heading into sorry, Connor's thrown me. He's in Mauritius at the minute. He's listened to the podcast, 2 podcasts, one of them with Ben on. Oh, and Charlie. Oh, so he's listened to 2 podcasts, and now he's watching us here. And there's Charlie popped up going, wait, why am I so bad? So back to reserve team football. It was an opportunity for clubs to put out fringe players, youth players, players returning from injury, trialists could play in a reserve team. And right the way through, even to I remember year 2000, stuff like that, there was a strong reserve league. And we would often see trialists play for Lincoln. And you would sometimes come up against big clubs. I remember us playing Newcastle. The gates were open at Sinsel Bank at 2 in the afternoon, and there was 1,000 people there. And that's what I see the BSM Trophy as, a little bit, like a reserve league. And do you know what? If it was treated in that way, with the under-21s coming in, and competing against, they had an age limit, so Chelsea can bring their under-21s team, but Lincoln are allowed to put out a team that features trialists, that features, some senior pros. Let's say there was a rule that said you had to have over, 4 players over 24 or something like that. I think that it would actually work well. Ben, turn on instantly, hear my name in the mud. Ben, it's only jokes, and I am literally in the mud all around, so please don't take it personally. So that's how I think the competition could continue to thrive, because the reason I want us to beat Accrington tonight, aside from I want us to win every single game, which is kind of a given, is the next game would be early January. I think it's something like week commencing the 6th. Oof, we did a big old turd there. Week commencing the 6th against Bolton Wanderers if we were to get through, which would be a great opportunity to get some match minutes into Jack Moylan, which might be an opportunity to get some match minutes into a returning Rico Hackett. We might have a player signed by then. I know nothing, so please don't take that as me going, oh, I know what's going to happen. But you never know. We might have a signing lined up on the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. Good opportunity to get some minutes in rather than dropping them in on New Year's Day against Blackpool. If we have got players returning, it might be that Jovan hasn't had a start in a while. It might be that we need to get some minutes into Dylan Duffy. This competition is brilliant for that. And one of the main problems I think that I have with it is that in the first half of the season, you play a lot of league games on a Tuesday. You've got the League Cup on a Tuesday. And then in the second half of the season, there's nothing. And part of me almost wants the second half of the season to have more EFL Trophy games and for us to have fewer of them in the first half of the campaign. Pre-Christmas and post-Christmas, there's a real imbalance there. And I know in previous seasons, if you look down the through history, this competition has been played later, so it's been, you've had group games kind of after Christmas. You could even play part of it in pre-season as well to help some senior players get some fitness. I think there's a lot that could be done with it, but that's not being done with it now, is it? Now we know what's going to happen. We've got Accrington, and if we get through, we've got Bolton. 1 second, Charlie, come on, pass that, leave it, let's go. 1 minute, I've got to try and guide him past what looks like people poo, but I'm sure it's not. There we go. Come on, boy, leave it. What do I think that we're going to do tonight? Well, we've got league games coming up, big league games. We've got Reading, Derby. I mean, it's a run of fixtures. Bolton, of course, on Boxing Day. It's a run of fixtures that you look at. And I think I said on the podcast, they could have been championship fixtures 3-4 years ago. These are big clubs. This is where we are now. And we're fighting, we're competing with them. We're right up there. Even Blackpool, New Year's Day, big club. We're fighting well with them, but we're not quite down to the bare bones. We're beginning to get a few players back, which was alluded to in the pre-match interview. Sean Rowan, for instance, struggling at the moment. to try and get to get minutes. So a good opportunity perhaps for Sean to have a run out. I'd love to see Jordan Wright get the opportunity tonight. And I know that it's a little bit different with a goalkeeper, because I don't think a goalkeeper suffers from fatigue in the same way as a player. You know, they're standing around for most of the time, aren't they? So you could probably play Lucas Jensen and be at a far lighter risk of injury than with any other player anywhere else in the squad. But I'd like to see Jordan Wright play. I'd like to see Sean Rowan play. Alex Mitchell will almost certainly play. And when you think that we could play a back three that's got Alex Mitchell and Sean Rowan in it, which, that's almost a first choice pairing with one other. It's a first choice back three. We've got 5 players for 3 positions, and all of them, doesn't matter who plays, you go, it's a strong defence. I'd like to see Jaden Brown get a run out tonight, especially when we're playing much higher wing backs as well. Now we're really pushing on. We're looking for the big switch. I think Michael Skubala's general line is much higher than Mark Kennedy's was. There's a real intent to go out there and attack. And okay, the touches in the box stat, I think, that I tweeted out from the Real EFL yesterday doesn't entirely underline that, but you've got to remember that that's got Stevenage and Leyton Orient in there, which were 2 really early games in his run, which we had far fewer touches in the box than we have in the latter games. So I think with a higher line, yeah, absolutely. Jaden Brown, I think, last probably at right back. I can't see us bringing Jay Ben back, for instance. I think we've got past that stage now where we bring the lone players back, because we've got a squad capable probably of getting through this game. And then across the midfield, I think we could see something drastically different, actually. Ted Bishop coming back to fitness. I think we could see probably 50 minutes of Ted, or if not, probably 35 minutes in the second half. I don't think we'll see both Ethans at the same time. It may be 45 and 45 when we rotate them. Ali Smith may get to play in the middle of the park, which would be really interesting. And then up top, I mean, you're talking Jack Vale, almost certainly playing in place of Makama, and that's a player that was starting Championship football last season. I do wonder if we might see Duffy start. I'm not sure if we'll see Mandroyu, but there are a couple of options. Hacks might be involved in the mix as well. So whilst we're lacking Rico and Lewis Monsma and Ben House and Tyler Walker, and Jack Moylan hasn't quite penned his, isn't quite in his area of being able to play just yet, we're actually in a position where we can put out a relatively strong side, resting some significantly key players for the games ahead, but getting minutes into players who maybe might just need them should they be called upon. That's why this competition's important. And it's why it would be important if we play Bolton in the next round, if we get through, if we get to play Bolton. Because I tell you something, Bolton Wanderers come to Sincil Bank, if we get through, absolute caveat, I'm not getting ahead of myself. If Bolton Wanderers come to Sincil Bank in January, that will have the intensity almost of a league game. Bolton run a B team. So they sign players, they bring players in who have been released by other League One clubs or kind of on the cusp of the first team. They're trying to bridge that gap between their academy and their senior team. They're doing that with a B team. So there are players playing relatively regular football in their B team who will be hungry to come and play against Lincoln City in the trophy. Bolton will want some success in that. They struggle against bigger teams in and around them at the moment. Probably not us, but it is Oxford, it is Portsmouth. They might need a little pick-me-up and a little boost. They might need to test some of those younger players. So what I'm saying, I'm not trying to get ahead of myself and preview a game that we're not even going to be in just yet. But I'm saying that when that game comes around, what a great opportunity with no league points at risk to give Jack Moylan a start, to give a returning Rico, hopefully, some time, to give Ali Smith some time in his natural position. I think it's just a competition that, if you take it at face value, well, there's not many people go, and there's under 21 teams in it, and blah blah blah. Then it does look pretty piss poor. But if you then take it at the value to the squad, the value to Michael Skubala, I think it's good. The potential route to Wembley, because let's face it, very few of us are going to Accrington. If we play Bolton 6th of January, if 2,500, 3,000 tops, go to Wembley, we'll take 20, like we did last time. That would happen. So I think that the route to Wembley is a really exciting element to this competition, and the money. There is money in this competition because Premier League under 21 teams or Elite Academy under 21 teams play in it. And you can't sniff at that. You can't turn your nose up at that. I can't remember how much the prize fund is for this round. I'm assuming with it being 10,000 a game, it'll be something like 15 or 20 grand for beating Accrington Stanley's B team on a Tuesday night with, you know, our reserve team is relatively strong. And if this were a reserve league, by the way, we would probably be able to field a couple of the trialists from Ireland, or the boy we've had on trial from Spurs, Cisse. So there would be even deeper, better benefits. Sorry, Kate Jackson is just playing a game of Burridge. I can't play Burridge when you put all of the answers, Kate, unfortunately, in the chat. But yeah, Gary King, James Kate, Stuart Binson, Lucas Jensen, Ethan Hilton, Ross Etheridge, Bohan Dixon. It's pretty comprehensive. I'm sure there's more. I'm not going to try and think of them. Right, let's go and have a look at some of your questions and comments. Anybody that I have missed. So Sumo Mark 007. I hope you're doing well, my friend. Views on Skubala so far. I am sold on Michael Skubala. I'll be honest, when it was first announced, I liked everything around him. But I'd got myself all caught up in Des Buckingham, which was the rumour that was somebody else that we were interested in, who subsequently went to Oxford. And that didn't... So by no fault of Michael Skubala's at all, I kind of, when it was announced that it was Michael, I thought, well, have we got our second choice? Having met him, having seen what he's trying to do, having listened to his interviews, I'm absolutely convinced that we got our first choice. And I'm absolutely convinced that he is a man who is best placed at the moment to take the football club where it wants to go in the direction that the board would like it to go in. And that's playing better football, that's developing players. And do you know what I think as well? And it's not a remit that anybody has mentioned at all. It's just to be a bit more likable. I mean, everyone knows I liked Michael Appleton, but he didn't have the public persona to go with what I believe his actual personality. You know, he didn't put himself across well. Not a fan of Mark Kennedy, and I think some of his interviews were quite tough. They were quite bristly. I understand, you know, people who dealt with him face to face at times felt that it just, dare I say, wasn't likable. That might be a stretch. And I just think that the club needed somebody like Michael Skubala, puts you at ease when you talk. He comes across like he's just a normal guy. And perhaps having not played Premier League football, having not come through that previous player route, no disrespect to Michael Appleton or Mark Kennedy, that he just gives you, I think, a slightly different personality and persona. There's not a distrust of the media. So we find out more from Skubala. And look, underneath all of that's window dressing. The absolute key is, you know, is there a mannequin under there? Is there somebody under there who knows what they're doing? Because Mark Kennedy and Michael Appleton knew what they were doing on the training ground. And each of those gave us a degree of success under their remit. Michael Appleton took us to the playoffs, 90 minutes from the Championship. Mark Kennedy took us to a top half finish and helped remodel the squad, partly into the squad that we have now, which is one of the best squads that we've had in my lifetime. So my lifetime supporting Lincoln. I'm not going to say my lifetime because 81, 82, 83, all of that. So I think that whilst, you know, we've continually built on success, the short answer is my views on Michael Skubala so far are very, very positive indeed. And I know people look at the Wigan game, 0-0, boring. I saw turgid. Somebody commented on YouTube, need a clear out. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That was a demonstration of what happens when you prepare your team for the opposition, and you're lacking several key players. Honest truth. So we're back on the competition, the BSM from Connor. I bet, is it warm there, Connor? I bet it's warmer than it is here. I'm going to Mauritius hopefully in February for my honeymoon once my dad's operation's out the way. So yeah, I will tap you up for what it's like. But Connor says the competition allows teams like us to try some fringe players, especially against under 21 teams. Lots of positives to take, especially the financial element. Yep. And there's no pressure to go because nobody really goes. I mean, I bet Charlie goes, although I don't think he's going tonight, but he goes to nearly every other game. And genuinely, I think the Rico Hackett could announce that he was shopping in Tesco's and Charlie had turned up there and watch. So Charlie says, with Solihull, for example, not playing tonight, could it be nice to see J Ben in the squad? Yeah, it would be lovely to see him in the squad. Not sure it will happen, but actually an attacking right wing back, isn't something we need, is it, at the minute with Lass and Jack Burrows covering. So he may get him back in and around the squad. I don't know. And obviously, I'd already mentioned that, so you've then put never mind. Malcolm, our absolutely vital cog in the Stacey West machine. I hope you're well, Malcolm. Malcolm does a lot of our history articles. So for students of Lincoln City Football Club, he's like the professor. Do you know what I mean? He's like Dumbledore. Malcolm Johnson is the Dumbledore of the Stacey West School. So he's caught me live for once, though he missed the start. Good to see you, Malcolm. Hope you're well, my friend. Kev Sewell, Teddy Bishop spends more time on the pitch than Gav Hughes does at work. Very good. He certainly spends more time on his on the sickness bed than I do, sat in my office chair. But when he's not on it, he's good, and we've got to find that balance. And do you know what? You can never write a player off, because for every Joe Walsh that doesn't get fit, or for every Liam Bridgecut that doesn't get fit and disappears, there's a Neil Erdley, or there's an Adam Jackson. Because let's face it, people were writing Adam Jackson off saying exactly the same thing 12 months ago, and look at him now. Saturday, Tuesday, arguably right now, player of the season. I love Jacko, by the way. I love Jacko, not in a purely platonic way, but he's one of my favourite players. He's a great guy. He's down to earth. He's a family man. He's a good footballer. He's a warrior on the field. Off it, he's unassuming. He's not controversial. Yeah, he rarely gets himself involved in things he shouldn't. He's just a great professional. Honestly, in 10, 15 years' time, when we talk about legends of a football club, and you talk about defenders like Trevor Peake, brilliant, Sean Raggett, brilliant, you go back to Paul Morgan, brilliant, we'll mention Adam Jackson in a similar vein. Not for what they go on to do, because obviously Trevor Peake went on to win the FA Cup. Steve Thompson went on to play in the Premier League. They're just in the type of player that they are. They resonate with supporters, and it's harder to appreciate them when they're here than when they're gone. And I think, Adam Jackson is definitely a Paul Morgan in the making for me, a centre half. I just look back on and go, I'd always have him in my team. I'd always want him in and around the Lincoln City side. Ben agrees Jordan Wright should feature. A couple of experimental options tonight. Very interested to see how we line up and whether it's exciting as it was last week. I think Michael's already alluded to the fact that the preparation will be different, and therefore perhaps the lineup will be different, but we will have to see. Steve Turner, morning, Steve. Has Jack Moylan joined the squad yet? I believe so. Chris and I, when we interviewed Michael Skubala, were lucky enough to stand in the corridor for a while, like a pair of little schoolboys, by the way, absolutely terrified of, chaps half my age walking past and going, oh, it's Lars Sorensen. But I think we saw Jack Moylan, 90% sure. So I'm almost certain that he's here and he's linked up. I think he just can't play for the side. Malcolm says he can't think of anybody else that played for Accrington. I'm pretty sure there's a couple of players who had loan spells with Accrington. I'll have a think about that. Craig Green, morning. Do you think loan players will come from Leeds in January? Possibility, but not a certainty. I think our recruitment strategy would already be some way down the line. However, we have space for a loan player. If we do, I think it would be potentially a centre forward, but it might mean Jack Vale going back. Potentially a central midfielder, but it would have to be with the caveat that Leeds would understand that he wouldn't get games. Now they've got, I think it's Sonny Perkins at Oxford, who has barely had a kick. I've seen his name mentioned. He can't come because he's appeared for Leeds and Oxford this season, so I think he'll stay put. But there are a couple, who knows? Do I think we'll get an A-star loan from Leeds? I don't know, it's possible, but I think a lot gets made of the Skubala link to Leeds, and I think it's more likely that Skubala will be used as a wild card in any negotiations that we were already having. And when you think about things like Morgan Rogers and Morgan Whittaker, they were both lined up and teed up almost in the summer before they arrived in the winter window. So I think that that's what we're going to be looking at. Most of our transfer business, I would imagine, would already be some way down the line, and it's only when that falls through that we then start kind of going back to our list. Paul Stellaras, hope you well. From the tweets we've seen so far, are you as excited as I am about the prospect of a full season? No idea how excited you are, so I don't have anything from comparison, Paul. Ben again, Skubala seems to be a lot more rounded in all areas, looks to have instantly warmed pretty much everyone. Yes, Kate's beating herself at Burridge, because Kern Miller happened to make his Lincoln debut only game at Accrington before going on to play for them. Connor says it's 28 degrees. I'm going to block Connor. Charlie is going to Accrington. He is stood at the bus stop. I'm just actually seeing if there is any questions or comments. Harry Jackson saw Jova McCarman in his local co-op. Lovely lad. Hope he plays tonight. You'll have to let Charlie know where your local co-op is and he'll buy a season ticket. Chris Bell says our best ever loanee was David Sommer. Nobody nowadays can top that. He was our best ever Leeds loanee. You know, and who could top that now? I mean, it was a short-term loan. Now you would get a 6-month loan. He was brilliant. He was brilliant. Our two most successful managers, Keith and Danny, in recent past both raided their former clubs for players they trust. Colin Murphy did as well. He ripped the heart out of that Stockport team that he kept up the year before to bring in the likes of, and I may be wrong, but I think Clive Evans, I think David Mossman, I think Phil Brown. Mark Story, can't remember. He certainly brought in a strong contingent from Stockport. Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you very much for watching this morning. We're 25 minutes in. It's been a slow old meander. I haven't walked a kilometre yet, but it's always nice to catch up and chat to you all. I really appreciate, we all really appreciate everything that you interact with on the Stacey West, be it the videos, the podcast, the writing. We're trying to keep the content fresh, relevant and constant. So thank you very much. The Stacey West team will be out for drinks post Reading. So we're going to go straight out after the game. We're going to be out and about and around town and all that sort of thing. So if you see us, come and say hello, etc. And we can chat all things Lincoln City. But in the meantime, all that remains to be said is up the imps.